Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are on day 3 of the Pivot to Grow mini series that we're doing for you. I'm going to do a little bit of a housekeeping recap for you because I know that we have, almost, 50 to 100 net new additions today. So this, again, as you know, as you went through and registered, we have put together, ID Agent Marketopia put together this growth series for you to be tailored around nothing but focused on business development, marketing, pivoting your business for growth and being extremely strategic in doing just that. So we have brought together speakers, some of them you know in the space, some of them you don't, but all around how to take where we're at right now in business, where we're at right now in the economy, and help you grow through this and grow right now and beyond. So we're definitely excited about the lineup that we have today. I'll announce who that is in just a second. But again, for those of you who I have not yet met, I am Andrew Hedden, CMO of Marketopia, joined by my co-host, Matt. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Matt Solomon, Vice President of Business Development at ID Agent in Kaseya. And as Andrew mentioned, just delighted to bring you day 3. We've been actually overwhelmed by the amount of people that, how much we've heard from people, the positive reactions. I've actually never really been a part of a webinar series where we just continue to grow. Pivot to grow, I guess, with registrations every day, just more and more people starting to hear about this. And so we appreciate everybody that's passing the word on to their colleagues. And I mean, even from yesterday's sessions, we've heard from MSPs who are like, I'm going to make my entire team watch this session, including ID Agent. I mean, we're going to have our sales team watch some of the sessions because they were just full of so much information that really apply it to everybody in the space.
Definitely. And one thing I'll mention from a housekeeping perspective too, make sure to link up. So link up with any of the speakers that are coming on. Every single person that we've had on thus far has definitely made mention of reach out to me, link up on LinkedIn. I'm here for you. So definitely take advantage of that. These are amazing people that we're all, definitely grateful that they're coming on the line and being a part of this event for the hundreds and hundreds of MSPs that are on here. But definitely reach out and take that invitation to gain another connection. And remember too, as you are posting about this, share out to other people. If you get a little nugget, someone says something brilliant that helped you, be selfless and take a moment of your time to post that out. Hashtag Pivot to Grow and get other people just as educated as you are. So I am pumped up for our first guest today.
Andrew, sorry. Before you do that, sorry. I just want a couple other housekeeping real quick. One, we want to be interactive, so please, if you have comments, you can put them in chat. But if you have questions, please try to put that in the Q&A. It's much easier to track it in the Q&A section versus the chat section. And also, all recordings from this week will be available following Wednesday, so next Wednesday. So definitely really try to come to these live so you can see them while we're doing it. But again, we appreciate interaction during the sessions as well. But now I'll hand it back over to you for the introduction.
No, definitely. So stay engaged. This is organic, and that's why we're allowed to interject and do all of that. This is organic, and that's what makes it really awesome. So the first guest, I am very excited that she was able to find a moment in her schedule to come on and share her knowledge with us. So the first guest today that's coming on is the growth evangelist over at Salesforce, Tiffani Bova. Many of you may know her. She has been in the tech space for decades and really driving change, driving growth, sharing knowledge for quite some time now. And so currently she's at Salesforce doing amazing things, but you may also know her from Gartner or other companies that she has been with. And one of the stats I love about her, obviously I could spend an hour just showing off the accolades in her introduction, the amount of magazines, awesome podcasts, awards she's won, on and on and on. But one of the things that I love is just, hi Tiffani, welcome, is the amount of stage time that she's given to be in front of individuals such as yourself and in the tech space and in front of business owners. So one of the stats I love, Tiffani, is that you've spoken in front of 400,000 plus individuals, and I'm sure that number is more than when it's sitting out there. So I'm sure it's around 500 now, and 400 plus keynote speeches, or 500 plus, and in six plus continents. So I am so grateful that you were on today. How are you?
Oh, well, I'm here in Los Angeles, and there's no place I'd rather be than having a conversation with you guys about growth.
I love that. I love it. And that is so that you are the quintessential reason, for me at least, I'm just going to speak for myself. You round out exactly what we are trying to share so clearly with MSPs right now is how to grow. And you've been having that conversation for years. And now the reason why I think today will be so powerful is that it's so pertinent and it's not an option right now. A lot of these things you've been talking about need to be implemented yesterday. So I'm definitely looking forward to what you have to share. So Matt and I will jump off and the stage is yours, and we'll come back on at the end and we'll answer some questions and chat with you a little bit more.
So can you guys see my screen or just me?
Just you right now. So we'll stay on with you until you.
Yeah, we'll stay on with you so I can see your screen.
All right, let me put on my handy dandy glasses here.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So while she's bringing up her screen, we have a poll, and maybe we'll just launch that now, Dana.
Yeah, great idea.
So this is a poll. So as you guys know that have been with us over the past few days, we're launching polls for every single session that we think are just great things for you to be thinking about, you to be taking self-assessments of. And then moving forward, it gives you a good idea of where you stand against your peers in the space. So this poll right now is, do you believe that growth is possible in the current climate? Or is your goal with your business to just remain the current size that you are and stay the best that you can, just hold on to where you're at right now? So options, I do believe growth is possible is the first option. I'm doubtful about growth, second option. I will be happy if I can just maintain some status quo, or I anticipate a decline and I want to manage as best that I can. So participate in this, pop through and share your insights. And we mentioned yesterday and the day prior to that we're going to share out this information also. And the hope is that through this event, you're going to gain knowledge, and it's in bite-sized pieces every day, 2 hours, that you can grab some nuggets, put them into action, and ensure that you're being serious about growth. All right, here's some results. Okay, we're online with a bunch of believers, which I love. So 99% of you believe that growth is possible. So I'm very proud of this poll right now. So way to go. So this is the entire, and maybe it's because the individuals who don't think growth is possible are not on the line right now. They're not in this event at the moment. But I absolutely love that. So 99% of you said that you thought it was possible. There are a few stragglers that don't think, 2% are doubtful about growth. 3% would be happy if they could just maintain status quo, and 1% anticipates a decline. Our goal, everyone who's tuning in, our goal through this event is to bring those small percentages that were at the bottom up into believing that growth is possible through what's shared. So you're going to get everything you need to know through this week. That's why I'm happy that you're here, and you should be able to grow through it. How are you doing, Tiffany? Is it popping up?
So I am trying to share, but it is not letting me share. So this is like total user error in front of 450 people. So successful keynotes.
No worries. Don't be stressed out. It's okay. And the
one thing about stressed out, I can do this without slides.
Yeah, I figured. I was gonna say, I'm like, you're not stressed. This is nothing to you. So no, that's so if you don't think you can get it up to you, we can jump off and you can go without slides, or.
Well, Dana, are you able to?
I don't know if you guys have to give me control. Like, it's not even an option for me at the moment.
In the bottom panel, you should be able to see a share screen button in the bottom panel.
So let me see if I make my panel bigger. My panel is small because I was getting ready. All right, so let me pull it up.
And this is an important, there we go.
I like it, perfect. Hello, there you are. We were waiting for you. So perfect. So we are going to drop off and we are going to let you just share the goodness. Okay, talk to you soon.
All right, everybody. So welcome. I'm so thrilled to be here at Pivot to Grow, the event today. And as was mentioned, my name is Tiffani Bova. I am the Growth and Innovation Evangelist at Salesforce, but I'm also somebody who talks often on a global basis about growth and sales and channels and managed service providers, etc. A little bit about myself. I was very early in the managed services industry, if you will. I was one of the founding members of Intel's Managed Services Network back in 2000. long before. There was maybe a half a dozen of us that were there at that meeting. I worked for a managed hosting provider from 1999 to 2002, almost 2003. So I was super early in understanding how kind of automating remote management and break fix and all the kind of early stages of managed services really came to fruition. As well as when I joined Gartner for a decade, I was advising many of the big tech companies on how to engage better with managed service providers. What kinds of programs do they need, as well as some of the larger managed service providers on what they needed to do, whether they were going to build their own NOC, partner to do it, you know, what were the things that they needed to do. So it's great for me to stay close to this industry and close to you guys as an organization, as well as, you know, just from a partner perspective, I'm invested in your success. Always have been. It's been 25 years I've been in tech, and it's not going to slow down anytime soon. So to those of you who are visiting us from around the world, I'm not sure where everybody is, but my recent book, Growth IQ, has just been translated into 7 or 8 languages now. And so it's been fantastic to see the book sort of make its way around the world. So if you are visiting us from someplace else, you know, I hope you've had a chance to see some of my work there. But let me get started. You know, I like sort of framing all my conversations in this kind of great reset that we're in right now, thinking about how do we take a pause, look at our business and figure out what are the things we could be doing in order to be more successful when we come out of this. Now, it could be 18 months, 24 months, it could be 6 months, depending on where you are in the world, what size your business is, what industry you're focused on. There's so many variables, as well as when you're able to actually go back to your offices. That's very different, city by city, town by town, state by state, and country by country. So this is really about giving you the information to figure out what's the best way for me to pivot my way to growth. So let me set the scene. Let's set the scene just from a bottoms-up perspective to make sure we're all on the same page on what we're talking about. The first thing I'd say, in spirit of seeing SpaceX launch Americans to space for the first time in many years off of American soil, many decades ago when NASA had the Apollo 13 issue, and one of the NASA directors said this could be the worst disaster NASA has ever experienced. And someone came very quick back, Gene Kranz did, and said, with all due respect, sir, I believe this is going to be our finest hour. So this is about how do we look at these challenging times? How can we possibly reconfigure our business, get our employees re-engaged and re-skilled, and how do we set ourselves up for better success going forward? Like I said, this is a long game play. This is not something that's going to fix in the month of June 2020 or even July or August. Maybe not this year at all, once again, depending where you are. But this has been an absolutely brutal time for so many. It's an unprecedented crisis across public health, economics, the economics, as well as the business side of everything in every corner of the globe. There's sort of nothing that has been spared as it relates to what's been going on with COVID-19. And now in the United States, and obviously in other places in the world today specifically, we've got entirely different things going on with Black Lives Matter and everything around equality. So there's all kinds of challenges we're facing right now, but with that comes so much opportunity. And so I just want to level set. Like, the growth projections from the IMF are tough, right? We see that 2020 is going to be -3% on the global economy. Advanced economies is going to be down 6%. And then emerging markets is down 1%. But you can see that there's also a bounce back when it comes to 2021. So this goes back to what I was saying. We have to figure out what can we be doing today to set ourselves up for success tomorrow. Now, there are varying degrees of opportunities, you know, in the B2B space as well as the B2C space. You know, whether you are optimistic, whether you're unsure, or whether you're pessimistic, it varies, and it varies by country. So if you are a managed service provider who only services the US, then you can see on the far left of this particular image all the information. If you have more of a global footprint and you have customers that have offices outside of the US, then you can see that there are pockets of opportunity as well as additional challenges based on where it is that you are in fact selling. And then really thinking about what are the industries that get served. So from a managed service provider standpoint, you don't just do networking, or you don't just do connectivity, or you don't just do front office apps or back office apps. You don't just do, what they may need now to work from home. It's a combination of software and hardware and services. And so even within the technology industry, there's various categories that have opportunities for growth. Now, both these slides come from McKinsey. You can catch the entire presentation. It's a B2B survey that they did that they now have up on SlideShare, and you can see the entirety of it. But I found these two slides really, really valuable for the conversation today on just what are the things that B2B companies predict they'll be spending on in the coming months. So now with that, I can say we are in a global growth stall. So when I wrote the book Growth IQ, one of the opening pages on it was, look, this is about top line growth. This is about helping the 87% of companies out there today, small, medium, and large, that will hit a growth stall at some time in their tenure. And now we've been faced with this global pandemic, which has put everybody in a global growth stall. Now, there are very specific industries with very specific products and services that are growing and growing exponentially. Some of it is they've shifted buying from retail storefronts to online. And so while still buying, it may be buying from a new provider. But there are also other industries that, let's just say, video cameras for your work for home, for doing all these Zoom calls, like they were sold out very quickly. And so there are certain industries where you see that happening. But overall, people are saying that it is going to be challenging. It's challenging to see what our revenue will be going forward for this year, as well as what the revenue will be going forward into 2021 and 2022. But ultimately, this is not about the stall. This is, you are not alone. Everybody's facing it. What are the things you're going to do to recover from it, right? And pivot towards that growth. Now, the unexpected catalyst in being this big black swan event, it's very interesting for those of you who haven't read the book Black Swan. I read it many years ago, and then I read it again when this started some 90 days ago or 120 days ago. And I can say that I then started to do a little bit of research on the entire concept of Black Swan. And the author of the book actually doesn't believe that this pandemic is a Black Swan event. We can agree to disagree. I actually think it is because it was unexpected. The scope and scale of it, you could argue as kind of this Monday morning quarterback, as we like to say in the United States, you can look back and, well, of course that was going to happen. And that kind of knocks it off from being a Black Swan event. But because it has such catastrophic impact across all parts of the globe, I wanted to highlight this one, which is I have been pushing digital transformation now since 2000. And I can tell you, over the last 20 years, I would normally hear, oh, that's not how we do it here. We're not going to make those investments. I want to have lunch with my server in my data center. No way would I put it up into this thing called the World Wide Web, long before it was a cloud, long before it was managed services, long before it was infrastructure as a service or application service providers, which then turned into software as a service companies. Long before all that, people were saying, I wanted to see, feel, and touch my technology. And that legacy model was really cracked open during this pandemic. It showed how many businesses were not prepared for anything like this to happen. And while we may not have expected this to happen, the fact that those investments had not been made, especially over the last 3 to 5 years, forget 2000, forget 2010, forget 2015. Let's talk about 2017, 18, 19, 20. The fact that this digital investments have not happened, now this kind of new future of, I want to be digital. I want to work from anywhere, not just from home, working from everywhere, starting to understand digital and being more agile and having scrum teams and developing and launching minimal viable products very quickly and iterating them, being customer led, being employee centric. Those things changing are really what so many industries needed. And in our big category industries like education and healthcare, transportation, food, supply chains, those really needed to shore themselves up. So if you are a managed service provider, this is a ton of opportunity for you to say, how can I help my customers make this accelerated transformation into digital? And it isn't just about the things you can manage. It's also about the things that they can do in order to serve their customers better. So what can history teach us? There are other instances where we have had these sort of growth stalls that have been placed upon our business that were not, by our doing, if you will. And so during those trends, you can go back and see, whether it be the financial crisis, whether it be September 11th, whether it be other situations that have happened in the globe. While the small business market may have contracted, it also expanded and recovered even a year or two later. So the amount of small businesses exiting, and maybe failing from a business standpoint is always made up by those that then start to grow out of whatever it is that has happened. So while some of your clients may in fact not be able to survive the current economic and business climate, doesn't mean they won't stand up another business. Doesn't mean the things you've done for them in the past don't set you up to do things for them in the future. And so I wanted to show you also what businesses did during the financial crisis in order to survive. These were the top things they did, but I really want you to focus in on flexibility and pivoting into customer loyalty, into strategic partnerships, and then really looking at diversification. Those are the ones I want to hone in on because those are the ones we have far more control over. And I'm not a fan of just cutting costs in order to show growth on the P&L. I'm a fan for optimizing what you have, getting more productivity out of those people, systems, and processes. And then how do you amplify that? And I think the flexibility and pivoting, which is what this conference is all about, is where you really have an opportunity to shine. Now, you have to get really comfortable with being uncomfortable because pivoting, if you're not used to that kind of speed and agility, while you have been ahead of the market for many years as managed service providers, and you know this better than I do, it doesn't mean your customers are open, or let me say that differently. We're open to hearing your advice about how they needed to digitize. But now that conversation is so much more able to happen because of what's going on. So that's how businesses have survived. Secondarily, what was the revenue impact? The good news is that not all businesses are created equal, that many actually were able to keep their revenue constant or went up slightly or went up a lot. So you can see that some 26% had a hit. And then some of it went down slightly, but the majority either hung on to the revenue that they had, grew slightly, or grew significantly. So there is hope there. There is pockets of opportunity for you to double down on the things that are working and actually make the growth happen. Now, what about these post-COVID habits of consumers? Statistically, it's said that it takes about 66 days to change a habit for an individual. We're about coming up to, well, I am anyway, I'm about a week away or 2 weeks away from being home for 90 days. It's the first time I've been home this long in over 15 years. But I've been here for 90 days, which means my habits have greatly changed. My suitcase has been put away. Last year I flew 365 or 70,000 miles. I gave well over 100 keynotes. And so talk about a behavior change, right? So ultimately those behavior changes that consumers are experiencing now, even something like working from home, requires this ability for them to change their mindset that I actually physically have to be somewhere or be in the office to work or see my server or see, whatever it is that I need to see in order to make it happen. And that is just not true anymore. So as those consumer habits change, it's not going to go back to the way that it was, and when I hear people say the new normal, like I can't wait to get back to normal, and I was saying this weeks ago that I felt like normal was so uneven. It was, I use this example that I live in Los Angeles, California. There's a Starbucks 3 blocks from my house. And the parking lot was full, even though Starbucks was closed down. And I'd be like, why is the Starbucks parking lot full if Starbucks isn't even open? And I drove through, sure enough, people were sitting in their cars getting free Wi-Fi from Starbucks. And so while we may say, oh, I'm watching this webinar, I'm upskilling myself, I'm focused on my business, I'm doing it from my own home, not everyone has access to high speed. As a matter of fact, about 20 million households in the United States still don't have access to high speed internet. So we can't say that everything's even. that if you're going to work from home, you're going to educate from home, you're going to do healthcare from home, you know, let alone all the other things that we now are facing over this week on you know, the conversations around equality. When you just think about the business side of it, it's like, let's not go back to the way it was. Let's go back to a place that we wanted it to be. Let's go back to this next future, this new future. So I think it's going to land somewhere in between where it was, where we are now, and all the things that we need to continue to invest in and do. So we now have consumers who are Generation C. So this is not Generation Z, this is not boomers, this is not, you know, whatever other generation you want to talk about, millennials. This is about this new generation with these new habits where it's shifted to digital, it's important on brand values, what do you stand for, it's real-time connections, it's change makers, it's people going and having different jobs in the short term, maybe even in the long term, but people are hyper engaged online. And so it's about communication, collaboration, connection, and compassion. And so this Generation C needs to kind of carry itself through everything that we do now. So what are the values of your brand? What are you doing to help your community and your employees during this time? Your local schools, your local hospitals, your boutique doctor's offices, your senior centers, like what are you doing to help your community during this time? That has everything to do with this compassion and values. And trust me when I tell you, we just finished a research piece called State of Marketing. It was the 6th edition. 7,000 people were surveyed. You can get it free to download at salesforce.com/research. And you can see what channels people are buying in, what's important to them when they make decisions to work with a particular brand. And a lot of it is around these topics. It's a lot around the values, compassion, help, you know, being value-based, all the things in bringing insights and making sure that your customers are okay. There's all kinds of extremely rich content in there for both B2B and B2C. And while you may look at this slide and hear some of the things I've said to be very consumer centric, I want you to know that that is a myth. The B2B side of the conversation has higher expectations than the B2C side when it comes to experience, when it comes to all these things that are on this slide. So if you focus on B2B, you're like, oh, everything Tiffany's talking about is B2C, doesn't relate to me, you're missing the point. Every one of your business buyers is a consumer. Every one of your business buyers is potentially all working from home. Every one of your business buyers is facing what's on this slide. And so they are consumers in their day-to-day life. And when they show up for work, all those expectations they've now acquired in their consumer life will manifest itself in their business life. So you don't have an app, you don't have the ability for me to set up a call, you don't have the ability for me to manage it remotely, you don't have the ability for me to do all these things, then you're missing out on this huge opportunity, because at the end of the day, this is about making sure that consumers, when they go back to work, have those access and opportunities. So Generation C, that's how I define it. Now, businesses are adapting. So you see many businesses that have retooled themselves and pivot to deliver PPE equipment, or help, and from a restaurant perspective, deliver meals to senior centers or to crisis centers, whatever it might be. So you see them adapting to provide supplies for us on a global basis that we need as human beings. But we also see businesses saying, what are the new jobs that need to be done that have been exposed during this pandemic, now that everybody is working from everywhere or anywhere or home or some makeshift shift office in your garage, whatever it might be. And so I want to highlight this quote because I think it's super important that people don't want 1/4-inch drills. They want 1/4-inch holes. So it's not that they want to buy managed services. It's not that they want to buy someone remotely monitoring and managing their network. It's that they want peace of mind that no matter what, if something goes wrong, someone is there to fix it and maybe even proactively prevent it from happening, and be there for them as a business. So they don't come and specifically use our language. They don't come and say things the way we say things as an industry insider. They talk about the 1/4-inch hole. So you have to think about, what is the job I am doing? What are the jobs I'm not doing? What are the jobs I could be doing that I've now learned because of what's going on? And that's where the opportunity lies. So I just want to remind you all that in 2007, 8, 9, and 10, during the Great Recession, these companies were all founded. They're all unicorn brands. Now, there's tens of thousands that didn't make this slide. But the point is that it was jobs to be done. During the recession, what did they understand and was needed from the business community as well as the consumer community? What can we develop? What can we launch? How can we differentiate? How do we fill that job to be done in a very specific way? And these are the brands that did it. So now will we look back 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now and say, oh, these businesses were founded in 2020, or these businesses reframed or pivoted themselves in 2020, and look at what they are now. That's the opportunity I'm talking about, is how do you look for the job to be done? And if you've never heard that term, you know, Clayton Christensen wrote Competing Against Luck, Innovator's Dilemma, all that talks about jobs to be done. Those are 2 great books and resources as well. There's many books called Jobs to be Done, so you can look at those as well. But that's what this is all about. Where is the opportunity for you to fulfill holes in the market and jobs that need to be done? All right. So now we're going to talk about navigating the growth dilemma. Like, how do you actually pivot yourself and grow during this time, knowing all the things I just said, right? The context of the market, what's going on to set the scene, what are the opportunities, what are customers looking for, what's important, how have others survived? Now it's the brass tacks of what do you need to do. So let me start from this right here. The opening chapter in my book talked about context. That when I was a Gartner analyst and people would ask me questions, sometimes small startup MSPs, sometimes medium and large MSPs, and I'm just going to pick on one like Silverback that was bought by Dell many a moon ago. You know, when somebody would ask me that question of how do we grow the business, I would immediately answer. I go, I know the answer. Here's the answer. And maybe about 6 or 7 years into my tenure at Gartner, right when I started talking about kind of the future of sales and what did growth look like, I realized I was doing an absolute disservice to the market. That if I am just going to say, here's what I think the answer is, that's not fair to the business I'm advising. So this is where this context for me started to manifest itself. What I mean by that is if you look at these 2 images, one guy on land going, oh, a boat, the guy on boat going, oh, land, neither one of them are saved in this situation. But the context, the exact same scenario, they look at it as 2 very different views. I'm saved, I'm saved. There's a boat, there's land, but neither one of them necessarily are going to be saved. They might have company now, but they're necessarily not going to be saved. So I want you to think about context. Your context is, who are your customers today? Who are the customers you serve? What industries have you gotten really good at? What products and services do you sell? What's working? What's not working? What is highly profitable? What's not profitable? You know, how can you rethink partnerships? What are the things you could be doing? Like an inventory of what's working and what's not working, and really give yourself permission to shed those businesses and focuses that are no longer profitable, even including customers who are no longer profitable. This is the time to clean everything up so that you can do what's right for your business and your employees and your greater shareholder community going forward. So the next thing in the opening of my book was the order in which you do things has significant impact. And so this is a scene from climbing up Mount Everest. And if you know anything about climbing up Mount Everest, you cannot go from the base camp 1, sort of the staging camp, up to the top in one climb. You have to go up and down and up and down and up and down. And so the order in which you do it, in this particular case, is a matter of life and death. From a business perspective, the order in which you do things, the sequence in which you do things, has absolutely everything to do with your ability to be successful. So I really, really want you to focus in on the order in which you do things. Should you just launch a product before you've even tried and tested it amongst a group of customers? Do you want to rebrand your company? Do you want to hire a different kind of skill? The point is that you really need to think about this in a different way. So now we're going to get into Growth IQ. There's the 10 paths to growth that I came up with. Let me be really clear here. None of these 10 should be a surprise to you, and that was on purpose. What I wanted to do was modernize growth strategies that have been around for decades. And I mean, from the 50s. of sell more to your existing base, sell what you currently have to new customers, introduce new products to your existing base, introduce new products to new customers. That Ansoff matrix is in here. I've just renamed it. And I modernized it with the lens of social, mobile, cloud, big data, AI, VR, AR, social media, all the things that we did not have in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when many of these strategies came into place. Even so much as some of the marketing strategies we've had for well over 100 years. The sales process, giving demonstrations, having people come and see a product working in real time, solution selling, all that happened in the late 1800s. So this has been a long time we've been using the same models. And so that's why I wanted to give it a little bit of a modernization based on where we are in the 21st century. So the first one I focused in on was customer experience. There's no shortage of this conversation. It's not lost on me. I started talking about customer experience being the new battleground almost 8 years ago. I was part of the team that made the prediction that the chief marketing officer would spend more on technology than the chief information officer. And that one stat, that one prediction sent off a flurry of acquisitions from Salesforce, Microsoft, SAP, Oracle. Everybody bought to try to get their hands on the dollars from the CMO. And it wasn't about like ad spending or search engine optimization. They were literally standing up DevOps teams and developers, and they were buying infrastructure, hardware, and software. It wasn't just about an ad platform to manage their advertising. This was real big technology purchases. And it was all focused on the customer experience. You can think the CMO is sort of externally facing, the CIO is about employee experience. Those two things together are highly powerful. Now, when you make a focus and you make customer experience a true north point for you, this is the results. Brands are far greater at growing. And so you can see the revenue growth between the S&P 500, the Fortune 500, and those that actually are very strong on the customer experience index. You can see how much the average growth rate is between 2009 and 18. And so you have this absolute opportunity that if you pivot into customers, it does pay itself back. Now, many of you say to me all the time, that's the soft stuff. I can't manage it. So if I can't measure it, I can't measure how customers feel when I engage, how they feel when they engage with my people, my brand, my products, my services. Yes, but there's more to customer experience than just that, right? Are the processes easy? Are things frictionless and seamless? Is the user interface easy? Like, customer experience is all encompassing. Everybody plays a role here, not just the chief marketer, not just the salesperson, not just the customer service agent, everybody. The next one is optimized sales. And what's interesting about this is, obviously I work at Salesforce, but this is one I've been focused on for a long time. I call myself a recovering seller. I used to sell technology. I used to sell managed services. I used to work for a big distributor many moons ago called Intercom. I worked for Sprint and sold managed services at the network layer. I mean, I've been doing it a long time, but I can tell you that where I see the biggest mistakes brands make is they think hiring another salesperson is the right answer. There's two stats I want to share with you here. One, 66% of your salespeople's time is spent on non-selling activities. The second one is about half of your sellers will miss quota. That's pre-COVID, which means imagine what's going to happen now. So this is about making your middle performers 2, 3, 4, 5% more productive. If you can do that, improving the processes, improving training and onboarding, giving them tools and single source of truth about customers, connecting marketing, sales, and customer service. There's so many things you can do here to just make the people that you already have employed in sales more productive. It will never be that your entire sales team hits 100%. The goal is just get them to improve a couple percentage points each quarter, each half year, each year, and you will absolutely see that improvement. The third one is customer-based penetration. So this one is one of my hot buttons because I'm often asked, how can we go grow the business today? I want to go and spend more on marketing and spend more on advertising. And I want to do all these things. And I'm always like, hold on a second. What about the existing customers you already have? Like, these stats are mind-blowing. You all have customers. If you sold your existing base of customers one more thing, one more thing this year, you would grow. So just keep that in mind. For me, this is the year of the customer, not the prospect. This is the year of the customer, not the prospect. So as marketers that are listening, it's not about going out and finding new prospects. It's about what can we do to the existing base to not churn them, because you're in a recurring revenue business. How do we get them to buy one more thing? How do we get them to create a testimonial for us that we can share into our base about something that we're doing with them that we may not be doing with others? This is about really getting close to those customers you have now and making sure you understand what's happening in your business. And why is it important? Because the marketers and sellers, for all intent and purposes, are addicted to newism. Like they just want to go get new customers because that's what they've always been directed to do. But if new customers are not buying, the market is a little bit tough, financing is difficult, getting people into the office, face-to-face visits, all these challenges from a go find new business really should lead you back to the existing base. So for me, growth is a thinking game. It's a thinking game. You have to outthink your competition. You have to think about the jobs to be done, the order in which you do things. It's the combination of multiple growth paths. It is never just one. So start with a beginner's mind. Now, what do I mean? Take everything you know, everything I've just shared with you, everything else you've been doing over the last 90 days. And if you were to start a new business Monday morning, what would it look like? And then you say, okay, how do I bridge from what I have and what I would start today if I could? And how do I bridge that gap and get closer and closer together? Now, if you say, wouldn't change a thing, I just want to get better at what I'm doing, that's good as well. But I want you to free up 10, 15, 20% of your mind time and open it up to new thinking. Listen to a podcast, read a book, go to a conference virtually like this, do something, have a conversation with someone you potentially have never done business with. Ask them what they're looking for with a lens of jobs to be done and how can you solve that. Start with your employees. Look, your customers will only be as happy as your employees. If your employees are happy, your customers are happy. If those two constituencies are happy, guess what happens? You grow and your shareholders are happy. So start with your employees. Employee first, customer centric. The next is, as I said, this is the year of the customer, not the prospect. I hammer this home again because so many get caught in that newism that I want to make sure you don't forget the gold you already have, which is the existing base. Lead with values, trust and transparency. Consumers and businesses right now are hypersensitive to what you say, what you do, and how you're positioning yourself during this time. Are you there for your community? Are you there for your employees? Are you standing up? Are you saying something? What does it mean to you in light of everything that's going on? And what does your brand stand for? And then what you do today will impact tomorrow. Absolutely no question. The decisions you make today will impact where you'll be 12 to 18 months from now. And change starts with you. It starts with you attending things like this. But at the end of the day, it isn't just about listening. It's what will you do differently? What will you do differently because of what you heard from here today? In all the sessions. If you do nothing differently, then you've wasted an hour of your time. We can all make more money. We cannot make more time. So if you're going to spend the time, pick one thing out of this session that you either really agreed with or really didn't agree with. But as long as your wheels are turning and you're thinking about how you can adjust your business, that's good enough for me. And if you don't agree with things, I absolutely want to hear it because I listen to you. You are my canaries in the coal mine. You are the ones that tell me if my thinking and advice is landing or if I'm a little bit off. I have always relied on the channel to tell me the truth. So please don't miss that opportunity if there's something that I said. But ultimately, I want you to be bold. Be bold in what you do. Give it a shot. As long as it's not illegal or going to hurt anybody, go for it. Because at the end of the day, that quick failure may be very different for you as a brand, but it's absolutely what's needed today. So further inspiration for you is I've got a podcast called What's Next with Tiffani Bova on SoundCloud, on Spotify, on iTunes. So check it out. I've got some really amazing, great guests. And then, this is the US cover for my book, Growth IQ. So would love to have you check it out. And once again, I'd love to hear feedback from you. So with that, I think we are going to go back to the team and go for some Q&A.
Yes, I think Andrew will be joining us here in a second. Thank you so much for that presentation, Tiffani.
So I knew how to get out of sharing screen. So
yeah, there you go.
we have graduated today.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing as Andrew's coming in that really stood out, when you started talking about shedding, customers, right? Because this is this opportunity to really look at your business, and I don't think that many MSPs are really understanding how much I'm calling it a bad customer, but a non-profitable customer is causing their business, right? I mean, sometimes I think it's hard to kind of rationalize cutting anything right now. But the reality is, if you cut them and you're more profitable, and you can spend more time on your clients, as you mentioned, selling to your more profitable and better clients, that ultimately is going to be way better than spending all the time that you were doing with your bottom 20% or whatever percentage that is.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, I famously have said two things on stage that have never left me. One, ready?
Yep.
Fire your customers. That went over well. Yeah. Then the second one was fire your sales force. 2 words. That went over well. But let me put the asterisk on what I mean by that is, if you really want to make a fundamental change, the challenge for managed service providers, if you decide to roll out a new product and your existing base does not want to buy it from you, what are you going to do? Then you keep servicing the old customers with the old tools or the old system or the old pricing model or whatever it might be. And now you've got something new. So now you're living in 2 worlds. Now, I'm not saying just flip the switch. I'm saying tell them over the next 12 months, we're going to transition you to the new one. And if you choose not to go on this journey with us, maybe you sell them, that customer, to another MSP who still is going to have that business model. But it's not going to serve you any good that if they're no longer profitable and you say, you know what, we're no longer going to do business that delivers us less than X%. And if it starts to, we either have to optimize it or we shed it. Now, on the salesperson side, like fire your sales force, I guess I said 3 things. That's the second. The other one was, if you're not marketing led, you're dead. So I've said 3 things that have not left me. But the second one is fire your salespeople. What I mean by that is, if they're not willing to get on board with all the things you want them to sell, how you want them to sell, the tools you want them to use, even if it's now video selling and they're resisting, you have 2 choices. You either invest in them over a course of a year, which costs you a lot of money. A third will do it, a third will try, a third won't try. Yeah. And so should you just hire a new salesperson, 4 to 5 months of ramp time, and they're far more productive? Now, in light of the current environment, this is not me saying fire people. This is me saying that you have to do what's right for the business in its totality and make sure you're running a profitable business. And so managed service providers sometimes hang on to multiple business models over time because they don't want to let go of anything. And they get very fixated on top line revenue number. Like, I'm a $50 million MSP or a $7 million MSP. And I'm like, that's not, I mean, well, it's interesting. Unless you're publicly traded, I almost don't care. What I care about is your profitability. I'd rather have you be half the size and triple the profitability.
Absolutely. Some of the you've had so many just little nuggets that I can't wait to share out with even others that haven't been on this line. But one of the things that you're saying, and we've got conversations about this all of the time with partners that are trying to grow, but to your point, are still hoarding some of those old models and those old clients that they've had great relationships with. And it's okay. I always say in business, you can love the client, but not love them being a client. They're 2 very different things. So you got to separate the emotion of the relationship, which is a beautiful thing to have, but with what the relationship to the business is. And you can take the partners, to your point, Tiffani, you can take the partners on that journey with you and say, look, it's in the best interest of your business to go from maybe the model that they may have now. Like, okay, it's great that you're a break fix, you're trying to move into being more of an MSP. Those little break fix project clients that you had, share with them why it's more effective for them to be coming on your managed services side, and share with them, like you mentioned, a roadmap. Okay, in the next 6 months, in the next this, set that expectation so there's no burned bridges in the relationship. And many of them will go, okay, But many MSPs fear saying, okay, we're going to have a price increase. They're scared of the reaction versus just sharing the expectation. And people understand business. These are business owners too. So I love that. I love that you mentioned that. Question for you.
So there's two things I'd say there. Yeah, sure. Two things I'd say there. One of the stories in my book is Netflix. And every time Netflix has raised their prices, by the way.
That's the book, by the way.
That's the book. Yeah, anytime Netflix has raised their prices, sales goes up. So, you know, I'm not talking about doubling the price, right? But it's like, is it value-based? Is it worth it? So they've actually slowed down churn and increased the conversion rate. That's the first thing I'd say on raising price. The second thing is maybe, and one of the other chapters in the book is called co-opetition. So maybe you partner up with another MSP that has a little bit of what you do, but for the most part, you guys do very different things. Partner together, and in that overlap, it could be the place where you transition customers you no longer want to serve over to them who wants to serve it. And because that MSP is not in your lane, maybe they can find some of their customers. And so this is a great time for this co-opetition partnering to happen. And it's something, by the way, the channel absolutely resists and has resisted since the beginning of time. Like, they're going to steal my customers. I own my customers, like that whole conversation for another day. But I would just say to you that really getting together with an MSP who could possibly help you with these customers that are no longer profitable and worth it for you to serve, although you love them, this is a great time to try out that model.
Definitely. And the other piece that you mentioned too about the sales rep, it's a fabulous time. And you heard obviously Terry and others talk on the line through this event. It's a fabulous time to hire. So if there are things, you know, Tiffani talked about needing to analyze your business enough to know the things that you need to change in order to start to pivot to grow. You've got to look at the people piece, and it's a great time to find amazing talent that unfortunately may not have a role right now, not because of their expertise, but just because that they may have been in a circumstance that was unfortunate. So scooping up those individuals and building a killer sales team is awesome. One of the things that you talk about in the book, and I'm going to show this again because I love this book. I'm going to show this again, and I remember some of the things that you were chatting about when you used to speak on the CIO and the CMO roles and what that looks like when MarTech was becoming big and there was a blend between those worlds. There's a ton of great nuggets in this book, so definitely grab it if you haven't already. It is a must read in my opinion. But one of the things that you talk about in there, and maybe you have another example you can share about innovation. You talked about the McDonald's example that you gave, the Blockbuster example that you gave about small tweaks, and many of them had to do with listening. What can you share with MSPs? Many on the line are just starting to market really out of more of a referral-based business. Some quick wins to pivot that they can just be actionable on immediately.
So I'd say even before I joined Salesforce, it's a masterclass. Your greatest sales force, 2 words, is your customers advocating on your behalf. So Salesforce is a masterclass in how customers tell our story for us and how we were able to actually help them be successful. Sell more, market better, service their customers better, innovate faster, collaborate better, whatever it may be. And so I would say to you that harnessing the power of story of your existing base, and how do you amplify that and share that with your broader community, right? So vendors, other suppliers, other customers, potential prospects, etc. And let them tell the story. You know, you saying, hey, I think you should go from being, on-prem break fix contract, which maybe you're still managing, to a remote monitoring. And then we only show up in case of a hard failure, which is 5-7% of the time. The rest of the time I can remotely monitor and manage it. And they're like, oh, no. But hey, here's another small business, local, just like you, in a different industry. And I just wanted to share this with you, their story on how they transitioned and what it helped them doing. Trust me when I tell you, coming from them is far better. If you say the sky is blue and the customer says the sky is blue, they're going to go, oh, I didn't know the sky is blue, even though you've been telling them the sky is blue for a lifetime. So let your customers sing your praises, which means you have to have a formal way to capture those stories and tell them. And so a voice of the customer team, someone who does advisory boards and captures that information. Now, you guys may say, look, I'm a $2-3 million managed service provider. I barely have a marketing department. And now Tiffani's talking about voice of the customer teams.
Right.
I get it. So I just, in full transparency, we have 46,000 employees worldwide. Our entire voice of the customer team, our formal voice of the customer team is 11 people. 11 people.
Wow.
So you need a person, a half a person, somebody. Maybe it's an outside contractor that you use for voice of the customer or customer advisory boards, and trying to learn those stories and tell why people picked you, you know, what your service is like. It's really that constant listening, doing net promoter score, some customer satisfaction surveys, which are backward looking. Net promoter is more real time. The voice of the customer and customer advisory boards is going to give you a forward look. So I would say to you that the way you used to do it, and just because it's the way you've always done it and what you're comfortable doing, doesn't mean that that's going to get you to where you need to go going forward. So that kind of role, voice of the customer, customer advisory board, kind of listening in that way. If you're an owner, I would take the time right now to call your customers, call everybody, listen to them. Don't give advice. Just say, what are your top 3 things this year in light of everything that's going on? And then can you, remember, jobs to be done. Can you productize it? Is there something you have that could be spun to be messaged in a way that solves that? Let your customers tell the story. So I'd say that, once again, into your base, not new, not prospects, and let those guys tell your story.
Yeah.
I love that. Go ahead.
One,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So just a question from the audience. You talked about the middle performers with the sales team. So one MSP was kind of chimed in and said, you know, and this is, I think, across the board, a lot of our MSP partners have maybe one salesperson. They may have a team, but a lot of them have the one salesperson. And I think a lot of companies, small businesses, deal with this, is when you have a salesperson, they're okay. They're not consistently hitting quota, but you know, what are you supposed to do? I think that's something MSPs struggle with a lot, is, do you cut bait? Do you try to get the all-star performer, or do you, as you kind of mentioned, do you invest? Do you kind of take a step back and say, well, maybe my process, I haven't invested in the process or properly trained them? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, because it's like, well, if you only have one,
Right.
what are you going to do? So here's what I would recommend is I would absolutely do sort of a inventory of what is the process that salesperson has to go through in order to sell. What's the process that your buyers have to go through to buy? You know, do they have to fill out a contract? Do they use DocuSign? Do they have to print it and fax it? Do you have to pick it up? Like, what are all the things you make it do? And going back to, you know, are you really taxing that one salesperson to spend 75 or 80% of their time on non-selling activities, which may mean maybe you need someone in sales ops that actually picks up all the operational stuff off the seller's plate, and they can just sell. So you can't think like this one person is not very good, because are they just not a good seller? That's a different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hired them, then I'm going to make an assumption they were a pretty good seller in the first place. So, you know, what are the things you could do to help them be more successful? Now, the other thing I'd say there is everybody's a seller. So even though you only have one person that has sales on their title, on their business card, and they're paid a commission, the network operating, you know, the knock guys that are answering the phone, the customer service, customer support, you know, the engineers that are on site, that are remotely doing things, everybody plays a role in selling. And so that goes back to, well, is everyone doing it the same way? Is everyone using the technology we have at our disposal? Are you using a CRM tool? Like, this can't be done on Excel spreadsheets and Post-it notes, you know? Yes, I work at Salesforce. I'd love for you to use our technology. But the point here is you got to use something. So you can't sell at scale. You can't know what they're spending their time on. You can't know what customers are profitable or not profitable if you're not tracking the information. It's not possible.
Absolutely. And I think that piece on systems, we did a lot of talking yesterday too about, you know, being able to, the sales process and what that looks like, and capturing information and where to store it. That's the point of having CRM systems that you actually use. They're only as strong as the way that you utilize them and the way that you put information in to then be pulled out later to use, whether it's for sales or marketing or whatever the case may be. You need that mothership for everything to be inside of. One of the things that you talked a little bit about was, you know, outthinking your competition. And right now, I love that, because we are in a phase where you have to outthink your competition. Right now, everyone is in a mode of, okay, how do we, yes, look internally at our teams, yes, look at what we're doing to gain net new business, and where our next clients are going to come from, or to your point, which is another very strong point, is clients this year are your current clients. Go deeper with who you already have. And if not, someone else is marketing to them and you got to make sure that they're happy. So touch on a little bit more there. Like, how can MSPs right now continue to think outside of their, think past their competition and what can they do right when they get off this call today? What can they do?
So remember what I said, I don't know, 40 minutes ago, and I said, I used to just answer that question, right? And now I go, hold on a second, like I need to understand the context of the business. Yes. So I would say to everybody, step back, take an inventory. No emotion as much as you can. Like, it doesn't matter. You've always done it this way. You tried it, it failed 3 years ago. Like, we've never been in this situation before. So I don't actually care what you've done in the past. It's number one, what's the context? Number two, I want you to talk to all your customers or a big majority of them and ask them, what do you want? What are you looking for? What could I do that would make business for you better? And it can't just be things like, oh, I wish you'd cut your prices in half, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. But what are the things, maybe if everybody says cut your prices in half, then maybe you go, maybe I do something in the next 90 days where I cut my fees in half in good faith. It will go a long way in getting them to, stay with you longer. But I would say first, do an inventory of what you have. Second, go talk to your customers, and in no particular order. But third, talk to your employees. Sometimes your employees know the answer to these things, but you're not giving them the platform to share it. And then step back and say, if I was going to really, this is an incredible exercise. If I was going to start a business tomorrow, knowing everything I know, and I didn't have the shackles of my legacy business to deal with, what would it look like? And then you need to say, how do I get myself closer to that? And what are the things that you do? So that would be my recommendation versus saying, here's the 4 or 5 things I think you should do, although I'd love to say them. I think that at a minimum, if I'm just making a blanket statement, it would be selling into your base, cleaning up those unprofitable customers, working on your processes and your systems, starting to minimize the noise in your own business so that you can become more agile. Focus in on the culture. Are your employees happy? Like, this is the time to do that work. We're almost past that point, right? Because businesses are starting to open back up and we're getting back to at least some semblance of normalcy as it relates to business. And so you're going to have to really focus on this in the short term. Even creating a board of directors, if you don't have one, and maybe they're just advisors, people in the industry, people you respect, get 5 or 6 people together, sit in a virtual Zoom call and say, hey, here's what I'm struggling with, and have really open and transparent conversations. You have to be vulnerable when you ask for help. So this is the time to do it.
Absolutely. I think that if anything, and I saw a couple questions come through that talked about, items like, we're just starting to roll up our, marketing strategy inside of our MSP. What do we do? We've been around for 20 years, only been doing referral partner business. What do I do first? I think you just answered it through what you just shared is that you go into your current client base, you listen, and you understand where you can dig deeper with them. And I think a lot of what you're saying too, if you boil it down, it's listen. Listen to the market, listen to your current clients, listen to where the industry is going and where you need to pivot next, and watch. And I think that is wonderful. Any last questions that you have, Matt, before? No? Okay.
Well, no, the only thing I would comment, because I also bringing in from something that was talked about yesterday, and Tiffani brought it up today, which was customer recommendations, right? We talked about getting those recommendations on LinkedIn and things like that. And I can tell you, I did my homework. I got like 4 recommendations already yesterday. So, just doing that, I just think that's a common theme we've already heard throughout the week, is getting your customers to be advocates for you.
Yeah. And I will tell you, like, people want to be heard. I mean, that's almost disrespectful to say today of all days. I mean, interestingly enough, to side my note for just a second, as I mentioned, I'm in Los Angeles, but during this presentation, we were together for less than an hour. I got 3 alerts for the curfews being set here in Los Angeles. Like, it's a crazy time, right? So I would say, like, this is all about listening and, just putting on from a business standpoint, like, spend the time with your employees, spend the time with your customers, get out of your comfort zone and ask people for their advice, listen to podcasts, do these kinds of webinars, read books, and once again, map out the company you want to be and understand that this is not going to happen overnight. Look, people in the channel are resilient. I remember when it was, well, you were a reseller, and then it was, we're a value-added reseller.
Yeah.
Then we were a systems integrator. Then we were a solution provider. Then we were a managed service provider. Then we were a cloud managed service provider. Then we were you know what I mean? Like we have reskinned ourselves from a naming convention for the last 25 years. If you remember the magazine, VAR Business Magazine, like, you know, we're not VARs anymore. Like we're managed service providers, right? And I will tell you that you cannot just change the name and not change the business and change the business model and change the way you approach it, change who you hire, how you position, how you work. You can't just change what you call yourself based on the fact that the analyst community or whoever it might be is telling you this is where you should be focused. You really have to think, what are the jobs that I'm doing? Read a book on jobs to be done, even if it's one as simple as, like I have, just because I eat my own dog food. I just read these two, like, because ultimately it's like, I want to understand jobs to be done better, because I think it really sets up my ability to share with you where you look for opportunity going forward. So I learn every day. I look for ways to say things. I get it wrong. And we just have to be okay with it. And so, you know, I root for this community. The managed service providers are close to my heart. I've been rallying for you guys for 2 decades. So, you know, I just say thanks for having me. Thanks for all the great questions and the support. Please follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter. But I definitely want to hear a note if you didn't agree with something, because that helps me pivot my thinking a little bit. And the next time I give this presentation, it'll be even that much better. So as always, I appreciate each and every one of you.
Well, we appreciate you and the amount of items that you have just shared and the powerful, just you say them so quickly, but they're so heavy and powerful that I hope everyone got to gather a lot of it. I'm seeing notes come in that are just so excited and so thankful that you took the time to tune in from LA and to be with us. So stay safe, and we really, really, really appreciate you. And we will absolutely be in touch with other questions that individuals might have, or giving you that feedback that you were asking for. So thank you, Tiffani. We appreciate you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Stay safe, and, you know, knock them dead this year. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Tiffani.
Perfect. And that was awesome. And so Tiffani's going to drop off right now, and any questions that you might have had and that she wasn't able to answer, we will absolutely get those answered for you. And I am just so unbelievably overwhelmed by the amount of notes that I'm getting even live here, whether it's through LinkedIn or this chat or through email. Know that you can reach out to us, and we will answer anything that you need, or have some of these experts chime in on it as well. So we are going to go full force into the next session. We've got a great couple of individuals. I'm going to let you tag into it a little bit more, Matt, also, but definitely pumped up to share with you what is coming on next.
Yeah, so we've got 2 people representing the 20 today. Obviously, you know, a lot of you guys know these people from the channel. We've got Tim Conkle that'll be joining, along with Mark Elliott, and they're really focusing on a really simple shift in your MSP sales pitch that they're saying is going to add $25,000 in monthly reoccurring revenue. So that sounds pretty exciting to me, especially if it's not a massive change or a massive shift. And I think Dana, I think we're queuing them up to join us here shortly.
Perfect. And as they're coming in, I'm going to mention really quick housekeeping item. So Marketopia, I want to give you the opportunity to start using, you know, your voice and share out some of the things you're learning online. And I'm seeing a ton of people post already. But what we've decided to do too is the person who posts the most and shares out information on the event, and utilize the hashtag #PIVOT2GROW, or you can tag Marketopia ID Agent. Don't worry, we're following it. And I am going to award at the end of the week, whoever that is, $1,000 in marketing services. So I'm so appreciative to everyone who's on the line and ready to learn and grow, that I want to support it as much as I can too. So awesome. I see Tim is coming in. Welcome.
Under the alias of Crystal.
I see it. So as we're waiting to see their faces come up as well. Oh, there we go.
There we go. But you guys are on mute, by the way.
They're on mute, but we will grab them. So can you hear us?
Hey, everybody. Yeah.
There we go. There we go.
We had the proverbial short between the carpet and the keyboard.
Yeah.
No problem. Welcome to the party. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Tiffani was really good.
She's amazing.
So
Tim,
I've
she's
heard
amazing.
a lot of great comments back on everything that's going on here the last day or two. It's really cool.
Awesome. And we are so happy to have both of you join. I know that obviously, Tim, you and I know each other well and are well enough, right? And we're channel family. And so I think that it's very cool for both of you to hop on and share some thoughts. And I think this topic is so pertinent to MSPs because this is how we speak. How can we add monthly recurring revenue today to our bottom line? What are quick wins that we can do? And so I'm super looking forward to this. So Matt and I are going to drop off, and you guys feel free to introduce yourselves a little further if you'd like, and take it away.
Yeah, and then we'll come back in at the end of your presentation for some Q&A as well. All right,
perfect.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Hey, it's great for us to be here, and it's every now and then you get a rare look into peers, right? So if you look at me and Mark, we're both peers to everyone on here. I've owned a IT company in Dallas since 1992. By the way, my name's Tim Conkle. If you don't know me, I'm CEO of the 20, but I have been in this from the IT company to MSP, break fix, the whole ball of wax, all the way through the life cycle. Don't let the gray hair fool you. I'm not that old, but I've been in this a long time. And so I think what you're going to hear from us today is something that you're not going to hear from everybody. It's going to be more from the peer perspective, more from us to you, and not so much vendor pushback or anything like that. We're going to give you a lot of really good information. Again, my name is Tim Conkle. I've got with me Mark Elliott. Mark?
How's everybody doing today? Again, my name is Mark Elliott. I'm CEO and co-founder of 3i International, based down in Houston, and we are about a $10 million MSP. We have about 25 employees. And let me start by saying that this headline that was put out on this session was not inflammatory and would probably be conservative. We've had some months that have probably been easily double, a little bit more than this. And I'm going to tell you this, it always hasn't been champagne and roses. We started our business in 2012, and I'd been in technology since 95, but as we ramped this, we had a lot of success. We had a lot of our revenue that was driven by hardware projects, and I believe in about mid-16, we eclipsed that $10 million mark. And that was followed in 17 by our largest client, that we were probably doing somewhere between $400,000 to $500,000 a month in hardware type transactions, went into bankruptcy. And that business absolutely dried up. And what else dried up is that our business went from a $10 million a year in revenue down to about $6 million. And we were really looking to innovate in our business. And that's where we met the 20. And based on some of the things that we're going to talk about on this call today is the shifts that we made within our sales process that allowed us to grow to a point that if we have $1 less than $25,000 a month in new MRR that's added, we're looking around like something's gone wrong during the month. And just from peer to peer, this is some things that we'll share with you guys today.
Yeah, and I think as we go through this, I think that you're going to find out that COVID has definitely done some things to MSPs. I mean, my own MSP, I know, I get it, I feel it. But I tell you what, there's about 180 members inside the 20 right now. And there is one common denominator or factor among every single one of them that are really doing good during COVID and those that are not doing as well. And I think that this will even hold true outside of the 20 itself. I think what you're going to figure out in the overall scheme of things is there's a couple things that you really have to have, and you have to have them right. If I look across the board at those MSPs that have really and are still really doing good, $25K a month in MRR, $50,000 some months of MRR, there is only one difference between them and the guys that are supposedly struggling a little bit. But I would say this is a truth. I think the people were struggling beforehand. I don't think that has changed. I don't think the dynamic, I think COVID has only made the problem bigger, more easy to see. It hurts a little bit more. And that is simply one thing. And we're going to talk about sales and the pitch and all that stuff. But let's be honest. But before you can ever pitch, before you can ever sell, there's got to be something there. And again, that one common denominator is pipeline. I have seen across the board that MSPs that have pipeline are doing really, really well. One is they've got a decently mature marketing strategy going into COVID, which meant the sales cycle may have slowed down, but the reality is the pipeline still produces. And that's the cool thing about marketing. So before you can ever get to sales, you've got to get through pipeline. And I'll ask Mark this question. I know that as an MSP, most MSPs think that pipeline is a mystery. It's the yes on the paper. It's the marketing that goes all the way to the table of that potential client, and they say yes. Marketing just did a great job. What is marketing really?
You know, I think there's a delineation there, because I think that's where the sales process starts, right? When you're getting close to getting ink on paper, you're in the sales cycle. But marketing's job is to really go out to that portion of the market and get people that are interested in buying something today to raise their hands. But as we start to look at that buyer's journey, and we see a bunch of statistical data out there that says 60 to 70% of that buyer's journey is done before they've engaged with a consultant, right? And so we're trying to inject ourselves early into that buyer's journey so that we can nurture and educate them and understand where they are, you know, in their contract terms, and really start to spend our time and efforts in where we know deals are in the marketplace. And I think that's really the true function of marketing.
Yeah, really think about it. It's to open a door. It's to create a relationship, and then real salespeople get involved, right? Marketing gets involved when you're staring at a closed door and it has a no soliciting sign on it. Marketing is what gets you beyond it and past it. And so we say all that to say this, right? I can give you, and Mark can give you the best sales process, or a little tweak in the sales process that knocks it out of the park, that gets the yes easily at the table. But the true reality is if you're not marketing, it's kind of like a guy that's in the pros and he sits on the bench and he gets up for his first time to bat and he's excited and all of those things, and then they show his batting average is 0. And that's really what it is. You've got everything that you need on the bench. You've got a good sales process. And I would argue that the majority of MSPs, IT professionals, whatever you call yourself, has got the technical aspects down. You've got that part, but you really have to get to where you have an at-bat. And that's typically a close ratio. And a close ratio comes from injecting marketing. I don't care where you market. I don't care what you do marketing, but you have to do something to create pipeline. But let's be honest, nobody joined this webinar to listen to me and Mark talk about marketing and doing that. Let's be honest. The real pitch is how can you consistently add 25K by creating a tweak? And so let's get into that a little bit.
So Tim, and I would say, in our situation, if we looked at what we're calling marketing, I refer to it as lead generation, right? That had never been a problem for our organization. We were good at getting our phone to ring. But when we would engage, and I think prior to the 20, we were probably generating somewhere between 40 and 50 leads on a monthly basis, right? We talked to a lot of people, we would engage with them, but we weren't closing that much. We had a lot of bats, but our sales process, because it was very, very technical in the way that we were selling at that time, stagnated, and it pushed sales cycles out, and it made sometimes people would arrive at no decision. And so that's really what we fixed. And I think this would be a good area to spend some time on.
Yeah, it's when you start tweaking from getting, let's be honest, 99% of MSPs really go to the table with a technical sale. They go into a business guy that knows nothing about IT, and they go in and they throw all this technical jargon on him. And the guy across the table kind of got the glazed eyes. He doesn't know what to do. He not equipped to say yes. Why? Because most MSPs come from a technical background, which means they speak at their comfort level. I'm very comfortable talking about technical because no one can challenge me or move me. So sales in this industry has to really have a process that you take technical people from the technical side of the table to the business side. And I think that's where it starts to change a little bit, because let's be honest, if Mark goes in and he gets all of this marketing, my God, marketing by itself is tough enough. So when you get in front of them and burn leads, that's a monster.
Well, and I think you look at how people are getting onboarded to the sales process or sales cycle, right? You see marketing that's done out there that drives people to download a white paper or a form fill, and I think that's just been worn out, right? People don't want to do that anymore. So now people are lead genning for security audits or network audits, right? And that starts the sales process. Or if somebody from a cold call or referral gets a referral into a client, they said, hey, let me do a network or security audit. Let's get a baseline of where you are today. And Tim, what do you think comes out of these audits?
Technical jargon.
Technical jargon.
It is why MSPs and IT professionals are hung up around this technical sale. I have to sell technical. I have to go in and tell them that I'm 24/7 monitoring them. I'm this, I'm that. And at the end of the day, here's the cool thing about technical. Technical is always the same. So in other words, if you go in and tell people what you're going to do, we're going to make sure your firewall's right. We're going to deal with your switches. We're going to make sure that the computers are connected and the servers and they talk to each other. We're going to secure your environment. We're going to, and honestly, it is all technical jargon that every single IT company goes in and talks through. I mean, it's like a playbook. It's not selling from the reality of selling into a business owner that actually educates him to something that he needs to know. It's literally throwing a bunch of mud on the wall and hoping the owner clears out a little hole, peeks through it and says, I get it. Problem is they never do that. And so the reality is, by doing a technical sale, what we've really done is we've taken a precious, I always talk about this, the most precious asset that anybody owns is time. I make it a point anytime I meet with a potential client to first thank them for their time and then make a promise to them. For this precious hour that you gave me that you can never get back from me, I promise you, you will be better equipped at the end of this to make a decision than you were when I started. That's really the thing that they want. And so when 3 MSPs go in and they all say the same technical stuff, there's really no way for a business guy to really make a good business decision, because he really knows nothing about the basic fundamental business side of an IT company. He only knows that you're going to provide him exactly what he called you to provide. And that's it. No business depth, nothing else. He's ill-equipped to say yes outside of anything except one thing, and that's money. And it's what drives IT company owners. I would venture to say, Mark, when you were going through, before you changed your pitch, a tweak, which we'll talk about in a minute, but before you changed that tweak, I'm assuming that you ran into the same things.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned playbook, because I think that the playbook on sales that has been handed to this industry came from some type of analytical tool, whether it's rapid fire tools or the flavor of the day, that you go and you run these reports. So you've got 700 pages of information that's made to scare the potential client or prospect. And after you guys understand what we're going to share with you today, something that we do in our sales process now is like, why would you ever let a stranger come into your network, put a thumb drive into your network, not knowing who they are, right? This is security 101. And then I think that you take that and you compound that with the fact that how does somebody understand your environment well enough from putting a thumb drive into your network, reading reports for a couple hours, that they can come back and tell you that you need to spend $50,000 to bring your network up to spec, which is phase 2 of the industry playbook, right? Coming down straight from Paul Dipple or HTG, that you've got to bring all these networks up to spec, that they have to be on your solution stack. And that's what 90% of MSPs are doing across the nation. And this slows down the sales process. And when you shift this from a technical to a business conversation, it makes it so easy for people to make a decision. And not only is it easy to make a decision, it makes it where they can make a decision in that room. And I'll tell you that one thing that has changed in our business by adopting the 20 sales process is not only are we closing 5, 6x the amount of monthly reoccurring today that we were prior to this, but a good majority of them are closing on the first appointment. And that's something that's been revolutionary in our organization.
And I'll say this because he brings up a really good point, right? What smart business guy would ever say yes to an IT company that just walks in the door with a thumb drive? Let's be honest. You're really trying to sell based on what you can pull out of a report, which is hard to believe at the end of the day. When you bring a binder in with 900 pages, now I'm not anti-audit. I do believe, and I'm just going to give this to you. If you do an audit to sell a client, you are literally killing your sales process. And let me tell you why. The best time in the world to get a close, to get a potential client to say yes, is in the initial meeting when they have a yes in their mouth. They've called you. They've asked you to come and present to them because they want to buy IT support. Every minute of time you add to it after the fact moves towards a no. So if you can ever figure out a process, which we have done very, very, very good, a process to where, and I'm even going to tell you the process in a minute, but if you can get to the point where you can get them to a point that they can have a viable yes in the first meeting without pushing them off, because let's be honest, you go in, you audit, a week later, you make another appointment, a week, and then it's a proposal, then it's, man, you have burnt a lot of wood and a lot of stuff. I've closed so many deals from MSPs that the potential client has lost faith in them during that process. Let's be real honest and straight. Audits have two primary functions. One, to scare the shit out of you. In other words, I'm going to scare the client. That's not a sales tactic, by the way. That's a nuts. I don't have to scare any client ever to get them to say yes to me. And the second one is I want to be able to tell you that you need to spend $20,000. Let's be very honest right here. No client likes to hear that. And I get it. Hey, let's scare the crap out of them. Most scare tactics, I could go on a long diatribe about this. Do they move someone emotionally in the second? Yes, but if you don't get a yes in the movement, at the moment of scaring them, you're going to get a no. I'm telling you that now. So wrecking the previous IT company has never been a forte of mine. I always tell people that we don't audit, and my competitors do. They have two functions that they do it for. One is to bring you a huge binder to scare the shit out of you. I'm not here to scare the shit out of you. I'm only here to take care of your stuff. The second is to create a project based on a 60 to 90 minute push of a thumb drive into a server, which no smart business guy would ever say yes to a company that doesn't have a contract with him to let them put a thumb drive in. I mean, you're talking about the biggest security hole in the world. It's right there. And the liability to the MSP is horrible. Now, I'm not anti-audit. We do audits after the fact. We happen to use rapid fire tools to do those things. So this is not about saying you shouldn't do it. 100% you should, but don't slow down your sales process by doing audits and things like that. I think that was the bigger point. But so let's really talk now about the little shift that you can do, right? Let's really do that. Mark, I'm gonna let you talk about the shift that you made and why you made it.
Absolutely. So I think as we get into this, it becomes really, really important to look at the landscape or lay of the land and who you're selling out there, right? And so I think we've got to fundamentally look at the roots of this industry, look where it has shifted today, right? You know, this industry in its infancy was break fix, right? Today we refer to ourselves as managed service providers. But if we go back and we look at the dynamic of the relationship with a break fix vendor that's out there, there was no true alignment or goal alignment with the customers. And here's what I mean by that. If you look at the customer that was out there on a break fix contract, what did they ultimately want? They wanted uptime, they wanted reliability, they wanted their people to be efficient. But what did the break fix vendor want? He wanted their stuff to break, right? That's how he made his money. And how did he get paid? He got paid hourly. And what exasperated this relationship is that the break fix vendor gets rewarded for every bad behavior. And here's what I mean by that. What happens if they take longer to get the work done? They get paid more money. What happens if they do shoddy work and it takes them 2 or 3 times to identify the solution and fix the problem? They get paid more money. And these guys, Tim, are so good at what they do, they say, hey, we can even do a lot of this work remotely. But outside of 8 hours worth of work showing up that they worked at 3 o'clock in the morning, how do you really know? So there's really kind of an element of trust that comes into play. And so I think when you look at these older break-fix contracts that are out there, it's the equivalent of a business guy handing a break-fix vendor 36 blank checks and saying, hey, go to town. I don't care what my budget is. And just between us in the industry, I think that is one of the dumbest business decisions that a company could make, is to hire a break-fix vendor. And then I think if we move forward to today, right, we've had the introduction of the managed service provider. And they've come into this environment and said, hey, we have fixed all the woes of the break-fix business. And we've got all these different plans for you, right? Bronze, silver, gold, platinum. I refer to them as the precious metal plans, right? And maybe one starts off with remote monitoring, but by the time that you finally get to the platinum plan, that's the plan that's all in. That's the one that handles everything. But then you've got to ask a question. What's out of scope? And then you start to see things in these contracts. Well, if we need to move a computer from the 16th floor to the 18th floor, that's not included. Or if you need a new server, well, you've got to buy the hardware, but then there's going to be $3,500 in professional services in order to spin that server up, do the migration, and deploy it. Well, what happens if a customer moves locations? Well, that's not included, right? All that becomes project fees. So what we really identify with this managed service provider, that they've got this base contract that's in place, but anything outside of that base contract is billed on an hourly basis as a project. So when we truly look at it, it's just another derivative of break fix. And by laying this leveling this playing field out there, the business owner can now grasp onto this and say, oh my gosh, I understand, break fix is not a good business decision. But then they can correlate and they can say, you know what? When I'm looking at a managed service contract today, this is really very, very similar to break fix in the fact that I always get all these hourly bills. And if you help them to look at an audit or talk to accounting and they go back and they start to see where they're paying $175 an hour to have a laptop computer spun up, they're going, oh gosh, I get it. I start to see it, right? And Tim, that really starts to be this base level conversation, in the sales process that leads to what we consider ourselves to be, which is an MID or managed IT department. And I'll let you lead in a little bit with that, Tim.
So I think if you really listen to what Mark's saying, it's literally shifting from a technical conversation. A technical conversation is I'm selling my service versus a business solution. Now, don't get me wrong. I know MSPs in that they always say, well, we are a solution provider. You can't be a solution provider when you can't put your solution on a piece of paper. If you can't pitch your solution, have a price for it within 5 minutes and do all of those things, you don't have a solution. What you have is, we have a plan maybe that we're going to get you there, but we got to live through this minutia. IT has been around way too long. And the shift now, if you really want to close, really the one shift Mark has really made is he's made the conversation no longer technical. We don't sell based on technical, we sell on business. Think about this for a minute. Is it a good business decision for a business guy to sit across the table from somebody? And at the end of the conversation, the dying question comes up, how much is it? And your answer is, well, I don't know. But you're going to pay it, and I'm going to bill you for everything. Well, what is business guy? This is how business people think. Well, what's my checks and balance? How do I know that your goal is my goal? It's an impossibility with 99% of MSPs, break fix, and all of those things right now. It is an impossibility for your goals and their goals to be actually lined up.
Looking at all of my emails as a sales rep, reading them, trying to figure out, is it a good thing or a bad thing? What's the action I should take on it? I mean, that's just...
Sorry, apologies there for a
No,
second.
it's okay. That was awesome, though. I mean, I was trying to get some tips right there, but I mean, we didn't go long enough. But you really convert the sales process to a business decision. Think about this for a minute. Think in your mind right now, as an MSP, as a business owner, because I would assume most people on this call are business owners, or you're connected to the business in some way. Think about this for a minute. If I sit across the table from you and you were going to buy anything from me, I don't care what it is. Let's say you're going to buy a car from me because that makes it easy. And you've looked at the cars, you've looked at all of them, you've decided on one, and you can pick what it can be. I always do a Volkswagen Beetle. It's just, I've always done it. I could tell you the story, but I won't. But let's say you've just driven my Volkswagen Beetle. It's a convertible. It's got the cigar holder. I know some people think it's a tulip holder on the dash, but me being a manly man, I think it's a cigar holder. And you've decided that's the car you want. You go into the dealership and the dying question is, how much is it? And the dealer kind of looks at you and smiles and says, hell, just take it. I'll send you a bill. How many people on this call would say yes to that? How many people would buy that car? Nobody. That's because we're not dumbasses. And we have literally put business owners in the position to say yes to a lot of us because of our model. They literally have to be a dumbass. Because if they look across at you and say, how much is it? And even, I'll never forget, I was reading a Q, I won't say whose Q it was, but a guy was asking the question of, I sold an all-you-can-eat contract, and I just did a project over the weekend, and the business owner said, man, you promised me this was all I could eat. If I paid you a monthly fee, this was everything. And I sent him the bill, and it had all of these charges on there, and the guy didn't understand it. How do I fix this? The guy thinks I lied to him. Well, you did. Let's be honest. That is a straight lie. And so in our business model, we've shifted from the technical aspect to a business sale. How do we do that? We go in and we tell the truth. What is the truth? The truth is about 10 minutes worth of information about them. We typically ask them, hey, how's everything doing? Why are we here? Always boil down to money or service. It'll never happen any other way. It's money and service. So you've only got two things to sell to. They're either mad about the service or they're mad about the money. That's it. So you don't have to expound on 30,000 things, expound on the two, but about 10 minutes. And then the next 45 minutes is spent literally telling them, educating them on the three types of IT companies that are going to walk in the door. Not how they service you, because I would argue, if you look at my IT company, it's about 125 employees. You're not going to be able to argue that I'm not servicing well, because you don't get to 125 employees and not service well. I think any IT company, our saving grace is we are incredible. This industry is incredible about service delivery. That being, I can make a firewall work, I can hook the switches to it, I can hook the computers to it, I can hook the servers to it, and I can make it all work. We're incredible. And if you're not great at service delivery, don't worry about it. They're going to fire you anyway. But let's be honest. You've got a guy wanting to make a really good business decision. So we educate. An educated buyer is a buyer that has a place that is very easy to say yes to when he understands the dynamics. We always go in with three types of IT companies. There's only three. There's a break fix. And we talk through break fix. Our first question is, what is your goal? Every client that I've ever asked that to is one of two things. We just want to work. Or they're nickel and diming me to death, and I can't get, my God, right? But no matter which one of those they say, nickel and diming, or really what they're saying is, I hate the rub with IT as it's been. You know, they just want to make a really good business decision. And so then we say, not a problem. I'm going to educate you. Now, if your goal is to just work, the first type of IT company that's going to come in and pitch you, they're going to say, I'm break fix. You're never going to have to pay me unless you need me. Well, hell, when do they need them? When it's broke. I mean, shit, it doesn't take a genius to figure that one out, right? So what is the goal of the IT company that and break fix? Let's define it right quick. Break fix is an hour of labor for an hour of time. That's what it is. It is a literal blank check. That's what break fix is. It's, hey, Mr. Klein, I want you to take all the risk of me doing everything wrong. Your goal is to just work. Shit, I need you to break. The only time that I can bill you, remember this, you can always follow the money. So the break fix guy, if you follow the money, okay, ask the potential client. So if you said yes to a break fix customer or a IT company, how does he get rewarded? Your goal is to just work. His goal is what? Just to break. So that's one thing. Now we go into a lot more depth and detail, but I want you to understand what break fix is. And then we talk about the second kind of MSP that, or the second type of IT company that's going to come in is going to call themselves MSPs. MSPs may be all you can eat. They may have 3 different layers. They may have all of these things. And that's cool. They're kind of like a break fix company and they want to charge you a monthly fee, but they want to parachute. And the reason being is they're not mature. MSPs is an old term. If you ask me, it's something that needs to be fixed because it was really brought about back about 10 years ago by RMM companies that wanted you to sell endpoint remote monitoring because that's how they make money. That's why you had 3 different levels. We go through all of this with a potential client. What is the ultimate goal? How does an MSP make more money? Yeah, if they've got a flat monthly fee, how do they make more money? Because that's where they're going to gravitate to. They're going to make more money by not making good decisions for you. Example, let's say that you've got a print server that is 5 years old. It's at the end of warranty. They come to you and they're going to give you a solution. What is the solution 99% of the time for an MSP? It's to sell them a new server. It's just a print server. But sell you a new server, set it up over the weekend, and what are they going to do? They're going to create hourly work. Because guess what? Hourly work is a disalignment of goals. In other words, it's an open-ended thing that says, hey, I don't know what it's going to, it gets back. We have this problem in the IT space of always diverting back to our lowest common denominator, and that's break fix. Why? A lot of us came up through it. But you make the suggestion of a brand new server, brand new warranty, and all that stuff. That's because your goal is not the same as the client. The client wants you to give them the options and give them the business reasons to do one of 2 things. And think about this. Why not just suggest extended the warranty for 2 years? It's just a print server. I've got a BDR on it. We got a parachute. It's not crucial. We can spin it up if it fails. So there's 2 options. Well, because the option of just extending the warranty, you don't make any money. You have to change how you make money in this business, and you have to flip it, right? So the first kind of company that you'll run into is a break fix. The second is an MSP, and the third is an MID. An MID stands for Managed IT Department. All of the 20 has rebranded to MID. And the reason being is that's what we sell. We tell our potential clients that, hey, we're a managed IT department for you. We're not down the hall. We're a phone call away. And I would venture to say that most MSPs say we want to be your IT department, but you don't act and function like one. MIDs work off of a budget. Everything is done in concert with the business owner from a planning stage all the way through to implementation. That is a defining de facto difference. How does an MID make more money? By making good decisions, not by making stupid ones. So let me go back to the original print server. We're going to give them the options. Why? Because if that business owner decides the server is the best way to go, not a problem. We'll do that. But there's no upside to us either way he goes. And so at the end of the day, I'm telling you, the sales pitch that Mark has changed to go from selling a smaller number than 25K, obviously, every month. If you look, it's about a 5-time. And all he tweaked, all he really did was he shifted from selling technical to selling a business decision. Again, remember this. The only way to one-shot close a client is to have a contract that you can get a signature on in the initial meeting. That means you have to be able to price it, put everything in a contract and everything without ever going and doing any discovery. And that's what we've really done well. So again, educated consumer, an easy yes. An uneducated consumer, he's going to buy on price. Now I could prove that, and I've proved it 1,000 times at a lot of different conferences and things, that you would make the same decision if you were presented in the same manner. But you've really got to shift. Here's the cool part too, right? When you shift to a business conversation, it's a process. 1, 2, 3. If you listen to Tiffani before this, she talked about sales, and everybody can sell. You can sell when you have a really good process that you believe, that's inside you, that you can articulate out on the backside. That was a really long explanation, wasn't it, Mark?
Well, and Tim, I'll give you something else to piggyback on here. Not only, you know, when you shift from a technical sale to a business sale, you start to move up the stack in client size, right? So you know, we were really comfortable in that 50 to 300 space. But as we started to move up with this pitch, our pitch started moving up stack into organizations that would have multiple locations or be in multiple states. And so not only do you have to have a business conversation, but you've got to be able to show scale in those meetings and how you're able to deliver these. When I go back to my roots in this industry, it came from the managed print side of the business. And when you look at managed print, there's dealer networks that are across the nation that it didn't matter where I sold a copier to, with a company that was based in Houston, might have locations out in California. There was a dealer that would install it and service it, and we'd be able to build the revenue, and the service was very, very consistent. But when you look at how fragmented the IT business is, it's a bunch of small companies. And when you look to service these larger organizations on a national basis, or somebody that might have 5 locations or 20 locations, every remote location is ending up in a one-off, you know, boots on the ground, per hour, you know, type support. And so there's another dynamic that's in regards to scale that really needs to be sold there. And you know, Tim, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
And I agree. As the industry coalesces together and MSPs and things get a little bit bigger, if you're ever going to move up stack, $25, $30, $40, $50,000 a month deals, you've got to be able not just to service delivery, but you've got to have the feature sets of a really big company. The 20 has really done this with all their members. If you look at what the 20 is, it's a bunch of MSPs that got together and said, hey, let's make one big footprint. Let's do everything the same. And that way, no matter where we are, we can sell into each other's markets and share the revenues. That's really what it's been. So the scale is really, really cool. Part of that. I want to go to questions for a minute because I think it's important. But Uday asked this question: how does the MIDs approach to print server? Well, like I said in the deal, we're going to give the business owner the option of just extending the warranty. If you knew how we really did inside the 20, you would understand that makes me more money than selling them a whole brand new server. But giving them the option, really what a business wants, they want you to really make business decisions that are aligned to their business and where they are. And there is no plus and there is no reason for an MSP to do that when he's so disconnected from the business that he's not. When you're the MID or the managed IT department, you're intricately involved in all of that. It's a crazy dynamic, and the shift in how your clients treat you and how you react to everything is such a dynamic thing. Here's a good one. What if their buying process is different? What is their buying process is different? Are you the third person to present? I'm going to answer this, and then I'm going to let Mark answer a question. So think about this. If I'm first one in, I become the benchmark for everyone. If your model does not look like mine, they are not going to hire you. I'm telling you that out of the box. I promise. If it does not line up to mine, they will ask you every question that my model brings to the table. And the reality is, if you don't line up to that, you will not get that client. That's if I go in first, I become the standard. If I go in third, I become the killer of the first two. Why? Because they've already spouted out their models and already given them paper a lot of times. And literally, my education literally makes it to where the business owner has to step back and say, I'm dumb if I choose any other thing. That's reality. Now, I've been selling this. Fortunately, I'm more of a sales guy than I am a technical guy, although my degree's in technology. But selling is an easy thing when it becomes the best option for the business owner. And that's really what it is. That little tweak that Mark made by shifting really made all the difference. Deborah says, what is an MID? Mark?
So MID is a managed IT department, right? I think it's the closest that you can come to an in-house IT department in the fact that it functions the same way, right? If you could imagine somebody with an in-house IT department and they said, hey, we need that computer moved from the 16th to the 18th floor and we need it done on a Saturday. Are you going to pay that employee extra money on their payroll in order to do that work? And the answer is no, right? That's encompassed. So when you look at an MID, we work for a flat fee or fixed amount of money in order to handle that IT environment with total goal alignment. We need that client to be up. We need them to work really, really well. And that's what we're great at doing in that model. And so, I think I'll revert back to what Tim said in this last statement, was kind of looking at what happens when you're the third person that comes in that model, right? Or the third person that comes in there and pitches. I think from a fiduciary standpoint, when we're all making purchases for our company and we're talking to multiple vendors, we're looking for alignment, and we're also looking for things to be out of alignment. What's wrong? What could be detrimental to my business? And if a third person that comes in says that, hey, to allow somebody to come in here and do a network or a security audit is a bad idea, it starts to cast doubt on the first two people that walked in the room, right? And I think we alluded to this earlier. We're not anti-audit, but we like to say that within this process is that we want to come in here and understand the environment. We want to know, how all these applications work and how they integrate together and how they're used. And what assets do you have in your network that need to be decommissioned that are living out there, right? And these are things that might take 60 or 90 days to really become intimate with. And that's how we can make sure on the front end that we don't miss something that people miss in estimates, things that people miss on the quote on the front side. We've got plenty of time to figure that out, to measure twice, to cut once, and to make sure that it's done right with total goal alignment. And that's really what comes out in that managed IT department philosophy. For the end user, it's just like fractional jet ownership, right? We give them what they need at that time, and it really becomes a consumption model.
Think about this for a minute, and this is what I love, right? The questions are literally going the way that our clients ask questions. Look at this. How do you price without a scope, right? Well, our contracts are all scoped out to what a IT department would do. And there's no such thing as, let's scope this work this way or that way. I'm telling you, this is so different than any MSP out there that it is almost mind-boggling until you hear it, and then it becomes very simple. Unfortunately, in an hour, I can't. It takes me 2 days to teach people this when they're doing Dallas. When they come to Dallas for Propel, when they join the 20. Another question. What does it look like when you provide a scope of work and estimate without doing a full discovery and you miss something and make a mistake? Everything is accounted for. We have this thing called Mountain Valley Principle. I'll go the mountain with you, I'll go the valley. But what it means is we automatically adjust on the fly, and the client never, ever, ever signs a check that he doesn't understand the number on it. Their CFO, whoever in the organization that signs the deal, or anybody in leadership, they'll understand every month what that bill is and everything. And it automatically sizes on the fly. So there is no such thing as, what if you accidentally miss something? Or what if you accidentally miscount and there's 10 more than there should be? Well, let's be honest, you fix it, right? So it is a crazy, crazy, crazy thing where all of a sudden the sale becomes easy. The production or the service delivery becomes very easy. Why? Because there's not this back and forth all the time of, hey, I need you to do the right thing to the client, or back, you've got perfect goal alignment. You just want to work. And how do you do that? Well, one, you start paying for downtime. If you're a mature IT company and you can't keep a company running, you're in the wrong business. Why should a client pay for downtime? Now, they have to pay you correctly for always having uptime, but it should cost us when they have downtime. Let's be honest. You know, what is your pricing model based on dollars per employee, et cetera? So our pricing model is different, right? So because of cloud and all that stuff, some people will charge a user, some people will be client server. We don't do either one. We do what is called device and user. So there's device cost. So for every device that's in there, and then there's a user cost. And then there's static cost. Say for Azure, if you had Azure and you had a set dollar amount for what the servers cost, and the mistake most people do is they take all their Azure cost and their management and they divide it by, let's say there's 10 people, by 10. Well, each time they lose an employee or they add, you get no upside from that server infrastructure. And if they decrease it, you lose money every time. And at some point it outruns the other side. So we have a very specific pricing model that universally works across the board, period, for every client. And we all do it the same, which means that no matter where you are geographically inside the 20, you can sell a contract. And I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, we had a 3-man IT company sell a $1.2 million single contract, $100,000 a month, more revenue than his whole company made. Reason being, he had all the pieces. Pricing and all that stuff gets really good. One last question I'll answer, and then we've got to come to an end, but how does one become part of the 20? I think in the chat, they put a link. Just click that link that's in the chat, or go to www.the20.com, and it's all there.
Well, and I would say this from a selfish perspective, right? As our sales got better, we started to move up stack. We're right now working on an architectural firm that has 21 locations across the United States. Right now, as Tim mentioned, the 20 has 180 locations across the US, but we don't cover all 21 of these. So there's a goal within the 20 that within 36 months, we're going to have 500 to 600 locations covering coast to coast in the US. So if the 20 is not in your market today, they will be at some point in the future. And I say this because I need to get these markets full, because we've got people in our pipeline that I need people that sing from the same sheet of music, understand the deliverables, know how to walk and talk like we do, that can take that portion of the revenue and do the fulfillment in those markets. So if you guys are interested in more information, please reach out. Crystal, I don't know if you can put my contact information out there. Oh, it's out there.
Absolutely, it's out there.
Feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to tell you about this opportunity as I want to help build out these markets for selfish reasons. And
I love this too. The guy says the cake sounds great, but the recipe would be better. My dad always told me, son, if you want to build a $10 million plus MSP, go to a guy that's done it and he'll give you the recipe. And that's really all I'm asking, or that's really all I'm presenting to you today.
Absolutely.
Hey,
I think that
Andrew, I see you back on.
We're back in. And one of the things I love, so Tim and Mark, we didn't belabor interests. I know the majority of individuals on here know who you are, and I knew that you were going to have a packed session. So we wanted to let you jump into it as soon as you could. So a couple of things, the amount of items that you touched on that are so incredibly pertinent, which is why there's a lot of chats just coming up. I loved the piece on ensuring that you've got the right type of sales conversation going and the right people at that table when it's first starting out. It's a huge miss with a lot of MSP. The wrong people are showing up. too soon and at the wrong times, and it's just not situated. So for anyone listening in, and I know there's hundreds of you sitting here, and even at this late in the game, or a couple hundred at least, so definitely reach out to them. They do have the recipe item as they're sharing. They've got some really awesome methodologies, not only that they use, that they just shared how you know their MRR is getting to different points, but there's a lot to be learned from people who have done it, right? And I think that's why any of us get together and have these type of conversations. If we have been blessed enough to have done something, right, we want to share it back, and we want to be able to enable others to do the same exact thing. So I think that's awesome. And we've got some more questions rolling in. Do we want to attack maybe one, Matt? And
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I also want to comment like on the technical, the technical jargon versus business, because that resonated so much with me, because when I'm on the road and we're talking about dark web monitoring with customer or MSP partners of ours, I mean, we tell them all the time, don't get into this in-depth conversation about the dark web. No one cares about the onion router, what the hell that means. I don't talk about the dark web at all. I talk about what your credentials on the dark web, how that's a risk to your organization. And so that part really resonated. Mark, maybe if you could talk for a minute, how did you make that mental transition, from talking technical to having that more of a, business conversation?
So Matt, I think if I look in the very beginning when we got introduced to the 20, we were really looking to move up market, right? And as we looked at trying to move up market on our own, it was how could we get a consistent level of service from coast to coast? So that's what attracted us to the 20. But when you looked at the core of our company, we had good systems, we had good processes, we had phenomenal engineers, but we had no ability to scale. And here's what I mean by that. We were always selling. So every time that we went to go deliver a project, our help desk constituted our NOC, our on-site team, and our project team. So every time we had a big project, we had to pull resources and put them in the field. And our customers were used to such excellent service that they would see the degradation in quality on the NOC, and they would start complaining, and we'd have to pull resources back in-house. And soon as we did, the project in the field would suffer. So we found ourselves on this teeter-totter of human capital between really satisfied and upset customers, right? And we're always going through this balance. And so when we went to solve that problem, because the 20 helped us with that deliverable and the 20 helped us with scale, and I'll tell you, in the middle of COVID, we probably only had about 40% of our customers that were in the cloud. So what happened as soon as COVID hit? Everybody needed help getting remote workers set up. Boy, you talk about burying a 25-man employee. If it wasn't for the backbone and the 20 and almost 100 engineers that we have access to that answer the phone around the clock, 365, it would have killed our business. It would have pulled us off of everything that was generating revenue, right? And so by coming into that environment, ultimately, what we learned was the sales process, which I'm a sales guy. I didn't think we had a problem with our sales process. Matter of fact, I thought we were pretty badass at what we did. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we had no idea, and we had to get fixed with that man in the mirror. And when we implemented this one simple change, and it switched from a technical sale to a business conversation and about goal alignment, it made all the difference in the world. And I would really say that we're just getting started right now. And it's just, it's been incredible, Matt. Great question.
Isn't it kind of weird though? Think about this. Isn't it weird that a $10 million company changed their sales process? That's freaking nuts, right? I mean, that's crazy.
I mean, Tim, I think, but that goes to show anyone on the line, and I know that I've gotten messages from MSPs who literally just got in the game a month ago to MSPs that are trying to get over the 10 million mark, the large MSPs who have been sophisticated in this game for a bit, right? You're never too big to pivot.
Yeah.
You're never too big to pivot. And if you think you are, that's when you start to get in trouble, right? If you think that you're too big, oh, we've been doing this for a long time, we're great, we're raking in the revenue, and you're not looking back at processes and how the climate is changing and how, what partners are out there, you're doing a disservice to yourself and everyone within your organization, and quite frankly, the services you're offering to the industry. So I love that you just said that, Tim, because I think that that's huge. And one of the things that both of you touched on that I want to just put a cherry on top of really quick for us is the ability to partner with others and scale. So having the long-term vision of what you want to grow up into in mind, and realize very quickly that the person who you thought was your competitor might be your best partner. The person who you thought you didn't understand their business or there wasn't really a partnership there, you listen to each other and see if you can find those gaps and fill them. And back to the communities, you know, we're in a time right now where there's a lot of local feels starting to happen again. There's a lot of communities that everyone is leaning on again, and leaning on each other to realize how you can grow through everything that's happening in life. So I think your community and the things that you have to share out are very powerful. So thank you both for sharing that. Give us one last nugget of truth that you want to just drop on the group before we.
I've got something to throw out there, Tim. And then
You throw one and then I'll close it.
So here's what's really amazing, and this piggybacks on the point that you're making right now. Imagine my example in the middle of COVID, and I've got people that need help with remote workers. You cannot be an island by yourself in this industry anymore. I think the little independents that are in this industry, it's not going to look the same 5 or 10 years from today, right? Yeah. Imagine being in your local market and picking up the phone and calling 3 or 4 of your competitors and going, man, I'm absolutely buried. Could you take part of my calls for me? I really need help. We had some clients just get locked up with ransomware. Can you help me? Mm-hmm. Right? That's not going to happen. The only way that you can get this depth and backbone, I mean, literally, if you join the 20, it's like you've got 1,100 people that are on your staff now between the resources and the communities to help solve business issues out there, right? So how could you get that? Well, you could get acquired by one of these national companies that are doing roll-ups, right? But you lose the upside of your business. You lose all the equity in it. This is like getting all the upside of being acquired by a billion-dollar company, but you get to keep all the upside and all the equity, and your business is worth more. And it's just an incredible opportunity, right? I just don't think you can be an island by yourself anymore in today's market.
Awesome, I love that.
And I'll say my last piece. I think if people are smart MSPs will have heard the most important thing that I said. Every MSP that has pipeline is growing, and they have made it through COVID. You've got Marketopia on this. There is no excuse for good MSPs not to market. Yeah. And remember, without it, you've got nothing to fall back on. So when you've got clients during COVID kind of pulling back a little bit and squeezing the dollars, it doesn't hurt when you have pipeline, because you continue to add new clients and new clients. Hey, I'm telling you, we're closing them on Zoom just as easy as we were closing them in person, but you gotta have you gotta have somebody to close.
Absolutely.
So no, I think the real pivot in this industry is to marketing. If I could just say the one thing that's the most important thing, if you're going to grow a company, it's marketing, it's pipeline, because that's the beginning stage of every single thing that's good about a big business.
So Tim, we're going to put that on a t-shirt because I loved every second of that. I'm with you. Obviously, that was the birth of Marketopia, right? And the birth of a lot of things that you guys are doing. And one of the, that pivot to marketing has been painful for many MSPs, which is why events like this, there's a lot of smart people in this industry that just want to help. And one of the things that we always say is there's no business to close until a lead is generated. So what's your sales team going to do? What's your extremely expensive engineer sitting over there going to do? They're twiddling their thumbs until marketing gives them something to serve. So I love that. Thank you both for joining. I mean, I feel like we could speak into the night about.
We could go forever.
I feel like we really could. So I don't think this is the end of Pivot to Grow. But I think that this conversation needs to live on, post COVID, obviously, and we need to keep it alive, and we need to keep it loud, because a lot of MSPs out there need our help. So thank you both so much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Tim, as always, and we really appreciate you both.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to contribute.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
We will see you soon. Bye, gentlemen. So they're just great. And I see questions were still rolling in, Matt, which is awesome. Thank you to the hundreds that are still sitting with us. You're amazing. And thank you for the notes that we're getting. We're going to make sure all these questions are answered. Take us through tomorrow for just one quick second, who we're going to see tomorrow. And then we'll let everyone jump off into their evening.
Yeah, so just like today with Tiffani, she was one of our keynote speakers. We've got Jamie Shanks coming in as another keynote speaker. Again, somebody Tiffani you would have heard of in the MSP space, but Jamie not really from the MSP space, but has trained tens of thousands of salespeople throughout the world, and really was great to connect with him. And he has a great session that everybody's going to find a tremendous value out of. Then myself, I'm going to be presenting along with my colleague Dan Tomaszewski, and we're really going to focus on how to grow your business through virtual events, right? I mean, obviously, we have had to shift quite a bit and doing events like this virtually, and just kind of finding new ways. And one of the cool things we're doing is, I mean, we're really just sharing how other MSPs have already had success doing it. You don't have to completely reinvent the wheel. You can find different angles, but we're going to give you lots of ideas that are already out there. And we're going to be joined by 2 other MSP owners, and they're going to talk about some of their experiences with it. So it should really resonate with this audience.
It's going to be great, and I'm definitely looking forward to tomorrow. And everyone, do not forget. So I know many of you are asking too about, are we going to be able to see? You know, I missed the first session. I had a meeting. It's okay. So make sure you tune in live, because there's a lot of goodness that will happen live that you might not see in what we'll publish out later next week. So you're going to miss a week, and right now during COVID time, a week is a lot. So definitely tune into lives to make sure that you're getting these nuggets live. Also, I'm seeing some of you already start posting #PIVOT2GROW, tagging Marketopia or Matt or I or Ideation or whoever in some posts, and share knowledge. The more you do that, the better. And then, as I mentioned before, there was just a thought and idea. I definitely want to support you. So someone is going to end up with $1,000 in marketing services at the end of the week. So continue to do that. Get the word out. Help others. And that's what it's all about. So thank you for joining Matt and I again. And we will see you tomorrow for another day of Pivot to Grow. Good night, everybody.
Good night.